Excellent. There you go. We are talking today to one of my favorite people in the universe. It is Chef Travis Teska. He is the culinary director over at NTC. So
Culinary instructor, yeah.
and
Yep.
you're and you're teaching people how to cook. What a beautiful thing. And
Yeah.
I'm grateful that we get a chance to spend a little bit of time talking about restaurants and bar peeps and what the heck are we going to do? But first up, can you give me a little overview? I mean, your take of the pandemic and how things have been for you. I mean, you've had students, in the culinary department at NTC. Now what? What's happening with you?
Yeah, so for what we're doing right now is thankfully we had some management style classes in the second semester. And so I converted those. I taped lectures and everything in my home kitchen and converted them all to an online base class. And we taught those two classes over the last, month and a half, 2 months. So the students had something to work on, and they were staying busy and staying active in the program. We have our big butchering class that we are holding off on. The official word this week is we should be able to come back on June 1st. We're splitting our class up into smaller classes, so there's less students in the room. We're going to, wear masks and follow as much as we can that, bigger distance in between students, so hence the smaller numbers. And so they'll be able to complete that class and finish out their first year with really not a lot of craziness. I mean, we're going to teach all the way into end of June, which is probably different than would normally be done, end of May. But they're able to continue and they're able to finish their first year with, they'll be able to come into the lab and do that part. So we're excited that we were kind of able to massage it and get it to work.
Well,
and the second year students are doing something similar. So we were able to continue. We didn't just shut down and not have any classes for the students. So we did our best to give them something to work on. We can work on theory. We can work on the management stuff. And then when we get back into the lab, hopefully soon, they can finish up. So
there you go. And Chef, can you talk a little bit about the setup? Because for people who don't know this, at NTC, you had a setup where you were working on trying to build a full-fledged restaurant so that you could actually have students actually put it into sort of real mode as far as everything that they're learning. Can you talk about that for a second?
Absolutely. I mean, that's the thing that's hard with any culinary program is giving the students that real world hands-on experience. So when they get to a restaurant, they kind of understand the craziness of an operating kitchen. And that's really hard to duplicate because what do you do with everything you cook? I mean, we can have the students cook for 50 or 100 people, but what do we do with that food? So we don't want to waste it. And so we created the restaurant that we're still hoping to be open in fall. It might look different than our initial thoughts on it, but the current plan is to still open that up in some fashion and give those students that hands-on kitchen experience. And so they understand, I call it the craziness of a operating kitchen. For anybody in the food service industry, they know exactly what I'm talking about. And then we also want them to interact with people. So we want them to have that customer service understanding and build those skills too. So it might not look how we thought it was going to look, but we're going to have something, whether it's to go or we do kind of like a meal kit thing where the students test the recipes and then create boxes and we sell those. We don't know. That's too far away really for me to get too concerned about because this might all kind of be much less of a concern come September. I mean, it could be just as bad too. We don't know. But for now, we're kind of trying to figure out how to finish them up in their first and second year and kind of move into summer and get back to some normalcy. And then we'll kind of start making plans for that restaurant. But yes, we're some fashion that's going to be open in the fall.
A couple of ways to go here as far as trying to get your take on restaurants and how they're going to handle stuff. First up, I got to talk to Mayor Katie Rosenberg, and I would imagine a lot of mayors, a lot of cities are trying to figure out what will it look like? What is the landscape for restaurants and bars? And so your take on, where we're at now and how we're doing things with restaurants. What's your vibe, about that? Because, I've obviously gone to a lot of restaurants. I know you have too, where you're supporting the people that you've known and you want
for sure
to do that. But what do you think about that situation and where they're, trying to head with their restaurants?
Yeah, so I think I love Mayor Rosenberg's idea of giving the restaurants more places to host. Like she talked about the tables in the street or on the 400 block or something. That's a really cool idea. If it's a thunderstorm, I think that's going to be a challenge. But, I think it's great to think of any way that we can help. I know that restaurants are looking at their numbers and wondering, how this is all going to work long term if we don't get back to them being able to have customers in there. And, the challenge with a restaurant is if the numbers don't work, they don't work. It's a razor thin margin. And, if they don't have enough customers in there, it really hurts financially. And so there's been some really cool programs out there. You mentioned that you talked with Guy this morning about his program. I read another one about, I can't remember his name, but a famous chef in New York who was creating a grant program, and then he also created like a lobbying thing to go to the government and say, hey, here's what we really need. I think we really have to figure out a way to help our independent restaurants. Those single owner operator restaurants are kind of the lifeblood of a lot of local communities, and I think we have to figure out a way to keep them operating. The PPP plan is great because it helped keep their employees, with paychecks and able to pay their mortgages and rent and stuff. But I think we have to think about the owners a little bit too, and how to keep them sustainable. How they can't continue to take out loans if they're in a financial hole for 8 years after it. That doesn't work. So what does that look like? I don't know. Is there a grant program that we can help them pay their mortgage for a month or two, or their rent, or something? Because I know I've watched some videos and read some articles with restaurant owners going through the numbers, and they said, we lose $10,000 a month if we close and do nothing. We lose $13,000 a month if we open back up and don't have enough business. So are we better off just closing the doors for now and just waiting it out? And I think every restaurant owner or operator has to do that math and figure out what's good for them. But once they do that math, can we help them somehow as a community or as a nation or as a state? That's something that I think we have to consider.
Yeah, I know Chef Jose Andres has, been one of the guys that have been talking about all these concepts on how to get it back to square one and get people working and all that. What's funny about watching him do one of these Zoom things is whenever he's on camera, is off to the side here, there's this massive wine glass. He's just sipping away.
Mine's just coffee.
For now, it's coffee. Yeah.
Fair. That's fair. Yeah.
I'm sure
Come 5 o'clock.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll work up to wine later. Well, and that was one thing I want to make sure we mention before we wrap up and all that is home cooks. Obviously, you've been saying plenty of that. You're on Facebook and Instagram. I am too. And so whenever I see all these dishes, I see people at least trying to do something that, I don't know if you take it for granted or not, that you've studied this your whole life. And now people are kind of going, well, I wonder how you bake this. I wonder how you cook that. And so are you running into that where there's people out there who don't know what they're doing in the kitchen, but they're thinking about it and trying it?
Yeah, it's been fun. I joined a Facebook group called Food is Love during quarantine. And it's been fun to see the wide variety of posts. I mean, there's everything from someone just putting a grilled cheese on there. It's very simple and nothing special, all the way into these just elaborate plating and just beautiful food. And so I think that's so personal, right? Everybody has their own like idea of what they want, that food to look like, or what they want that food to be for them. So it's kind of fun to see. I think tips for home cooks is it's all about technique. I teach technique, not recipes. If you know how to knead the bread and you know how long to knead the dough and look for the gluten development, you don't need the recipe. So I always think it's better to focus on techniques, because recipes are just a guide. I like to change them all the time anyway. They're more suggestions a lot of times for me, but you have to know the techniques first. So study your techniques and practice your techniques. And, it's always the worst case scenario is, it's not edible. And a lot of times you can use it, right? If you burn it, you just call it blackened, right? Put some Cajun seasoning on there, call it blackened, and, who's going to know? So, I'm kidding, of course.
Chef, you know what? That's the quote of the day is, in worst case, it's not edible.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the end of the world. If you screw it up, then you know what to do not next time, right? Like
I so needed to, when I got into the baking world and I started doing banana nut breads and blueberry muffins, we've got blueberries frozen from last year, and so we're using all kinds of stuff. But when I started it, I'm sitting there and I'm stirring the bowl like crazy, and I'm going, I've stirred the heck out of this, and why did it come out so tough? And it's not moist at all, and so you learn as you go. The first 2 or 3 batches are going to be duds.
Yeah, and that's, my grandma always called it a flop. Oh, that's a flop. We're not going to eat that. You give it to the chickens or whatever. It happens. You have to learn somehow. So, we love teaching the students there for that, because they can learn by us and they can make those flops. So when they get into the industry, they're not making the flops. But, I think focusing on techniques, I think finding recipes that explain those techniques are always nice too. I'm a big fan of The Joy of Cooking for people who are kind of learning how to cook, because they lay out, okay, here's how to make pie crust. Here's what to do. Here's what not to do. There's really good instruction in there. And I know when I was a kid, I still have the same copy. It's old and worn. But it has really good instruction for someone who just doesn't know. So, I think good old-fashioned books, Dead Trees, still have some value over that online stuff, because anybody can put a recipe online and it might be great and it might be not so great. And so, those time-tested recipes sometimes are a good way to start. And then you can say, okay, I want to add whatever to my blueberry muffins like you're talking about. But you got to know how to make them good first. So
yeah, as I recall, The Joy of Cooking weighs a little bit, the book itself. And so instead of using marbles on the pie crust, maybe you could just put the book actually, to weigh down.
I don't know about that.
Bad idea.
I mean, you try it and see how it works first, and then tell us.
Yeah, I was gonna say, whatever you're going to eat that's baking, which is adding pounds to you, then do some curls with The Joy of Cooking.
There you go. Yeah. You need a second copy then.
Yeah.
Get the original copy and the new one, and then trade off.
I see it working. That could be.
Right.
Gotta try it at least. Well, Chef, listen, I know that we will have to meet up again, because as we go through these phases of opening up, that we're going to have new questions and new answers all over the place, because we're planning for something we don't know how to plan for.
Yeah, I think that's well said, Dave. We're planning for something that we don't know how to plan for, that we've really never done before. And I think the most important thing that we can remember is do your best to support those restaurants. I mean, think about all the sports teams, and think about all the ballerina things and all those things that we've always hit those restaurants up and say, hey, can you give us a $50 gift certificate? Well, I tell you right now, they need our help. So go out to eat, or get food to go, buy gift cards, do whatever you can to give them some help. And I think I hope that we have all of our wonderful restaurants left at the end of this. And so we got to do our best to support them however we can.
Absolutely. Chef Travis Teska joining us today from NTC. And Chef, all the best. May the force be with you.
You too, sir.
We have material.